recently I settled a case for $750,000.
In the mainstream media, there's so much stigma around lawyers or what people think they are versus what you actually do.
People think, oh, you're a lawyer, this guy's automatically making a lot of money. Not the case at all. And I was busy working on those cases while at the same time trying to figure out running a business brand new, you know?
What makes you passionate about personal injury? Who are the type of individuals that you should avoid for one reason or another? What's a story that was extremely shocking to see?
What I really like about it is the risk that comes with it. You're only gonna get paid if you win. Truth is, you're not gonna know until you're in it.
What's up, everybody? It's Lorenzo. Welcome back to another episode of Link Live, episode 13 today, and we're welcomed by none other than Chicago's lawyer, aka Sharif Maadi. Sharif's the president and CEO of Maadi Law, located here in Chicagoland. In this episode, Sharif reveals how he took his law firm from zero to a 7-figure plus business in just under 2 years. He's coming off a massive 2025 with over 200 plus cases won, over $4 million in settlements won. He's rated one of Chicagoland's top personal injury lawyers. If you are looking for a real success story and you're looking to learn about someone who has become a master at their craft, then this episode is for you. As always, like, comment, subscribe. If you guys have a guest that you think we should feature on the show, drop their name, shoot us a message. We're always looking for people to feature here. Without further ado, let's hop into it. Link Live, episode 13. We are back with another episode of Link Live. We're welcomed today by Sharif Maadi, aka Chicago's lawyer. Super excited to have you here. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my first pod, so I'm excited.
Good. Well, we're excited to have you, and I've known you for a little while now, and I've gotten to see some of your digital progression and just like progression as a attorney and lawyer up until this point. And aside from us working together a little bit, I think like what you do is extremely interesting and intriguing, especially the line of law that you practice. And I think there's a lot of valuable insight to be told, right? So like always, I want to peel it back to kind of your upbringing and some of like the early attributes and experiences that instilled some of those early values into Sharif and kind of what built you up to who you are today. So for the viewers, just to give them some context, let's talk about your upbringing, your background, anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a pretty big family. I have 4 siblings. One older sibling. We're 11 years apart. So it's an interesting dynamic because we each have that oldest sibling personality. Because by the time I was old enough to remember stuff, he was already off in college. And then 3 younger siblings. Muslim household, I'm 100% Muslim and born and raised in America. So one thing about me that for sure played a role in like the type of person I am today is my father. My father was a single parent for most of our lives. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, had a 5-year battle and passed away. So then it was just my father taking care of me and my siblings. Mostly me and my 3 younger siblings because my older brother was just old enough to kind of just, have his career and stuff like that overseas. Right. So the thing about my father was he always instilled like hard work. And he was the type where he wasn't settling for anything less. Like, oh, you gotta be not an A. Okay, well, you're in timeout, or you're not allowed to do this or do that. So it was just having that like hard parent, and only having that hard parent sucked a lot of times, but it 100% like played a role in the type of person I am today. So I like to think that me and my siblings, we always like to work hard, dream big. That was one big thing about my dad. Like, you got to be not just $100,000 successful. You got to be like uber successful enough to take care of everything that you need to take care of. Right. So that was like a huge part of my upbringing, for sure.
Absolutely. When your family immigrated here, what were some of those early jobs you saw your father doing that kind of taught you those lessons early on?
Yeah, so my father did pretty well for himself. For as long as I can remember, he was always a business owner. I know before that, like when he first came to America, he was probably doing like taxi jobs and stuff like that, just making ends meet. But as far as I can remember, he was like a business owner, and then like always worked like 7 days a week, 15 plus hours a day. No questions asked, just like going to work, doing his thing, and then coming back home, eating. Like it was a very, very like strict like mindset.
Sure.
So just seeing that all the time, and like barely any fun. It was always just like work, work, work.
Right.
That's what I seen from my dad.
Absolutely. And then growing, you lived in the Chicagoland suburbs, grew up in and around the area. At what point did you know you wanted to pursue the legal route? Was there ever a point before that while you were going through school where you had this entrepreneurial itch? Was that something that you felt, or was that something that you developed later on in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the whole thing about being a lawyer, honestly, my mom, when I was like very young, like 8 years old or so, just said like, hey, it'd be cool if you were a lawyer one day. But parents say like random stuff like that all the time. But once she said that, I just stuck with it. Growing up, you're always asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always just said lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. And that never changed. But like, as I grew up and started like working, I always put in a lot of hours wherever I was working at, whether it was a restaurant or some type of store, like a lot. So I understood the value of money at a young age. And I knew that at some point I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And have investments, own stuff. Like I always envisioned myself being on the phone a lot, closing deals, and then also just driving to different businesses, whether it's going to like an apartment building and then a restaurant or this or that, like driving to different places, fixing problems, and then like getting money.
Right.
But I knew that in order to be comfortable doing that, I wanted to have a career that would, no matter what investment I did, if it failed, I would always have this career to fall back on. So I stuck with being a lawyer, and I'm glad I did because I love what I do. Yeah. Especially being a personal injury lawyer, I love what I do. I didn't know that, like, you don't unless you have a father or a mother or family member that's a lawyer or works at a law firm. Being a lawyer is just what you see on TV, and it's not like that. So I didn't really know like that 100%. I 100% wanted to be a lawyer until I became one. So fortunately for me, it was like, okay, I actually like this. It paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question, because I feel like in the mainstream media, there's so much stigma around like lawyers or what people think they are versus what you actually do. And another thing on top of that, like currently, although people say it's never been easier to make money, it's never been easier to find a job because of how much access everybody has with technology and social media, this and that, like, what would you say to somebody that's maybe younger, maybe, finishing up college or even post-grad, that is thinking about pursuing law school? Like, what are the real like nuts and bolts to it that you have to understand before going into it? Because I don't care what sort of law you go into, and you'll tell it better than me, I'm sure it's not easy by any means, and you have to really commit to it if you want to do it. But like, what is the real sort of guts of like what you have to go through in order to commit to doing that?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Like because there's hundreds of different types of lawyers, right? So what would you do? What do you like need to be in order to be successful as a lawyer? So the funny thing is the LSAT, which is the exam that you got to take to get into law school, the bar exam, which is the exam that you have to take after graduating from law school and then becoming a lawyer, like certified. And then like all the exams within the law school require for sure at least one thing, which is to sit down, not know anything, and just find the solutions to the problems that you have. So for example, the LSAT, you have no idea what the hell the LSAT's about. You have nothing to like base it off of. So at some point you got to sit down, open up an LSAT prep book, and just start understanding where it's at, like starting from zero, and just like sit down for hours, day by day, week by week, in order to get a good score on that exam. Law school, same thing. You have a class, you might go pay attention in class or not, but you have readings to do after class. You have to like, I know it seems so simple, and it is, but it's like hard to do, like to sit there and read and read and read until you understand, whether that means read and write or read, or think about it a certain type of way, but to like really sit there and start like an avalanche of work by the like flipping the first page and then the next, and consistency. Same exact thing with the bar exam. Same thing. You don't know you just gotta like start sitting there and just start and keep going, like sitting down. And being a lawyer is the same, like same thing. You have this issue that arose, whether it's for like a client dealing with a specific issue that you never dealt with before. You have to be able to sit there for hours and figure it out, whether it be research, reading a book, anything.
At what point did you know that you wanted to go into personal injury? Was that something that you figured out after you graduated law school, passed the bar? Was that something that you have to start prepping for throughout law school?
Fortunately for me, the first job that I got at a law firm while I was in law school was at a personal injury firm. It was a very small firm, solo practitioner. It was just the lawyer, and then she was looking for a clerk, and she hired me. And how I got that job was pretty interesting. So like the first year of law school, I applied to as many firms that had an opening just to make some cash on the side. And I got 3 responses, and all of them were no. So for the summer, after I finished my first year, I decided to do an internship at the public defender's office for free. And there was a lawyer that I connected with there, told her that I was interested in personal injury and a couple other things. And then fast forward 2 months, once that ended, and the school year, the second year was about to begin in law school, she contacted me saying, hey, I have a friend who is looking for a law clerk. Are you interested? I said, yeah. So the first job that I got was at a personal injury firm, and then that's when I started to learn more about what injury lawyers do exactly, how do they get paid, the ins and outs of all of it, and that's when I knew, like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to do.
Nice. What makes you passionate about personal injury? I know there's a lot of like satisfaction, fulfillment, I'm sure, out of pursuing those cases and settling and winning those cases. But for you, like, what makes you passionate about personal injury?
Man, of course, there's a lot of things, right? Like you're helping people who are going through a tough time that have been injured, but what I really like about it is the risk that comes with it. Your clients aren't paying you anything up front. You're only going to get paid if you win. If you lose, no matter how much time you put into it, you lose that. And you have to pay money on these cases. You have to pay for records. You have to pay to file a lawsuit. You have to pay for a bunch of things. These expenses could go, be thousands of dollars. And you only get paid if you win. So I love that aspect of it, the risk aspect, and not having to chase clients for money. So that, and then just like forcing someone who, whether it be, on purpose or an accident, caused someone else's injury, forcing them to pay up. Now, of course, the money 99.9% of the time is from insurance companies, but it still feels good. Right. Forcing an insurance company to pay up, it feels great. Giving a client their check feels great. It's a great feeling. It's like you're going up against someone, and the other side is trying to minimize what you're putting in front of them as much as possible, and whether it be through evidence or skill or strategy, you force them to pay.
Yeah, love it. I definitely want to get into some of those like case stories in a little bit. You had another job after you worked with the solo practitioner though, before you started Maadi Law?
Yeah, so okay. The first firm I worked at, I was there for about a year. I loved it. The lawyer that I worked for, she was awesome, and I learned a lot. But I knew that I didn't want this to be the only experience that I have at an injury firm. Right. So I just decided to start applying at like other firms that were looking for law clerks, and I found one, and got a second job as a clerk at a law firm. And that by itself taught me a bunch of things, because I remember when I put in my 2-week notice, this lawyer was like, "What? I thought you loved working here." And I was like, "I do. It's awesome." She was awesome. Like lunches every week. A lot of companies don't do stuff like that. And bringing me around, having me do actual work. She's like, "I thought you loved it here. Why would you leave? I told you that I would even want to like hire you as a lawyer." I was like, "I just want to see a different like side of things. Right. Even if it's something bad, I want to know that there's another way of doing this one specific task, and that way I know 2 different ways to do it, and I'm gonna do whichever one I think is best." And you're only gonna know that if you experience it at a different place, at a different firm in this situation. she was not understanding that, dude. She was like, what? Like that makes no sense. And I was like, I mean, I don't really have to explain it anyway.
How well, if you remember or did know, like just to put it in perspective for people, like how much was a solo practitioner like this woman making, you think, from what she was doing as an individual?
Man. So the cool part about being a personal injury lawyer or having a firm is that, dude, you can make millions off one case, and you could also make like $1,000 off one case. So like, you know, every month is different, every case is different, but like I remember when I was there was one case that she settled for like I think 1.3 million. That by itself was like over $300,000 to the firm. And then just from the ones that I remember working on, 10 grand here, 15 grand here, 30 grand here. So every case is different, but for me there, honestly, it was mostly learning more of like the grunt work. Right. Because it's not just about case comes in, I'm gonna settle this, settled, checks go out. Like there's a lot of grunt work that has to happen from the bottom. So that's where I learned all my grunt work, was my time working as a law firm.
Okay. And then what would you say are the biggest differences in this new firm that you went on to work at? Were they bigger in size?
They were a little bigger in size. Yeah. So I went from a solo practitioner with just one lawyer to a firm that had 3 lawyers and like more staff. So there's a bunch of differences, man. Everyone does things in a different way. The technology that they're using, the ways that they send out records requests, how they send out mail. Like one firm was writing where the mail is going to go to, and the other firm had like, you press a button and this machine populates where even the little things like that. How each lawyer communicates with clients, how each lawyer markets, how each lawyer does or law firm does this. So there was a bunch of differences, like even the smaller things, a bunch. Yeah.
And then I want to talk about maybe your inflection point a little bit. How long did you work at that second firm for?
So the second firm, I worked there as a clerk for about a year and a half. And they're also the firm that gave me an offer by the time that I passed my bar exam.
Awesome. And then you worked there up until you started your own thing, right?
Yep.
So obviously, besides getting all like the experience, understanding the ins and outs of maybe how the operational side of a law firm would work, what was your inflection point? What was your defining moment where you're like, obviously I don't want to be a lawyer. I love what I'm doing. These firms are great, but there's still something more. You haven't fully scratched that itch. You know you want to start something for yourself. You have that entrepreneurial mind to you. Was there a defining moment? Was there an inflection point, or was it something that kind of brewed over time and compounded?
It was something that definitely kind of brewed and compounded in. So I knew from day one that I wanted to start my own firm at some point. You know, some people tell you 2 years, some people say 3 years, some people don't start their firm until like 10 to 15 years after. I knew I wanted to do it, but I also knew that my main thing in order to be successful once I opened up my own firm was the experience, more than anything. Because you want people to feel confident when they retain you, and the only way that you'd be able to exert confidence, unless you're an A1 bullshitter, which I wasn't trying to be, is if you know what the hell you're doing. So that was my main thing, was experience before finances, before everything. So it was like laser focus, just experience. Don't look at the money, don't look at the salary, don't look at nothing. And then once I started to gain more and more experience, okay, after my first year, that's when I was like, all right, now I learned a lot. Now let me see how much clients I'm bringing in myself to this firm. And once it reached to a level to where it was like, I'm bringing in enough clients to basically pay for my own salary, that's when I started to realize like, okay, it's possible. Okay. And now I was stuck between, well, I know I could bring in clients with relatively zero marketing. Imagine when I start marketing, I'm 100% going to be able to bring in a lot more, but now is the experience there. Because being a lawyer is one of those things where you're never going to know everything. It's just, do you have enough to be able to go on your own? And for me, I knew enough to be able to take on certain cases and to get through certain stages. There's certain things that you want to get under your belt. So for me, it was like trial. I wanted to make sure that I had at least one trial under my belt. Trial is very different in personal injury. They're very rare. 95% of cases settle. So to be able to do a trial, even if it wasn't first chair, just second chair, to be able to honestly look at someone in the eye and say, I've done this before. I've also taken a case to trial. I've also done this. Like when you're telling the truth, people feel that. So that's when like the mindset started to shift, and it reached a point where I was like, okay, now I know my worth. Am I going to open up my own firm now, or am I going to work at another firm and just gain more experience? The working at another firm part was to help with the salary and the money that was coming in, because in the beginning it was very hard. It was really hard. Check to check, honestly, that's what it was for the first 3 years.
I was going to say, so how many years old is Maadi Law now?
Maadi Law on paper is 2 years today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Today.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That leads me to the next point, because I want to talk about some of those early challenges and struggles, right? You could obviously feel confident all you can in terms of being a good lawyer, but there's obviously a different layer of pressure when it comes to like, okay, now my name's on this. This is my own thing, and there's nobody that's going to save me, help me, or any other way. What were maybe some of those early challenges that you weren't accounting for or expecting? How did you overcome them? And, you know, aside from referrals or word of mouth, like how did you jumpstart the success of your firm?
Okay. Take it one step at a time. So first of all, with the jumpstart of the firm, it was when I was working at the firm, when I put in my 2-week notice. I actually put in a month notice and they cut it to a week. Anyways, when I put in my notice, I had 43 pending cases that I brought to that firm.
And how are they instructing you or tasking you to go about getting those? Like, how are you getting those cases?
I was getting those cases mostly from other lawyers. So like through networking, and also just word of mouth. So I made sure that whenever I was successful on a case, that I would get as much as I possibly can out of that client or that client story. So for example, getting a review, getting that person to maybe post something on their own social media, getting as much as I can. So through word of mouth and through networking with other lawyers. So networking with other lawyers is important because I'm able to tell them, hey, if you send me a case and it's successful, I'll give you a cut from the attorney's fee. So I took full advantage of that once I learned that was a thing. So what was the second part of your question?
What were some of the early challenges? Like what were a couple of things that you weren't accounting for or expecting when you went out on your own?
Okay. So when I was at that firm, I had 43 pending cases. This is important because I basically started off my own firm with like a grand opening. Anyways, when I put in my notice, 43 pending cases, and then the way it works when a lawyer leaves a firm and he has those cases that he brought or she brought to that firm, what happens? Do you just leave like the cases? What happens? So I learned through research that what's supposed to happen is each one of those clients has to basically make a decision. Either stay with that firm, follow the lawyer that you initially like retained, whether he or she is going to a new law firm or their own law firm, or just find a new like separate lawyer. Sure. So at that time I had 43 pending cases. I had that conversation with all of them, told them that I'm leaving the firm, and the firm knew about it, by the way. Told them like, hey, is this the letter that we're going to send out? Told them I'm leaving to open up my own firm. You have a decision to make. Either stay here, follow me, or go to a separate firm. They all decided to follow me. So from day one,
how confident did you feel with that they were going to follow you?
Very confident. Because
I'm sure that's a good like supporting factor to the whole thing, right?
For sure. Because they contacted me in the beginning, not the firm, to have a lawyer. So this was good and bad. It was a blessing and a curse in a way, because when you start your own business, there's a bunch of shit. There's like 1,000 things. There's like the registrations, the documents, the where you're going to go, are you going to work from home? Are you going to rent? Are you going to all this? So I knew for sure I wasn't going to just start having employees right away. I was going to just work from home. And you want to be able to build your business slowly, right? But I had 43 cases from day one. So I was like, literally 43 cases to work on. And if you ask lawyers, there's lawyers that only have like experienced lawyers that are only working on 50 cases at a time. So I had 43 from day one, and I was busy working on those cases while at the same time trying to figure out running a business brand new, you know, literally like brand new. So it became apparent really quick that I needed help, like I needed staff, and I knew I wasn't gonna have someone come and like work on my basement with me. So then this is what happens. Like there's a problem and you need to solve it. So the problem was I need more staff. There's not enough time in the day for me to do the work in all these cases. So then as a business owner, you're like, okay, how am I gonna go about hiring someone? You know, these are the things that no one really thinks about. It's like, what do I do? Do I just do a job post on Indeed? Oh shit, everyone's talking about virtual assistants. Should I just hire someone from like overseas? How does it work when it comes to like tax and stuff like that? Long story short, I knew I ended up having to hire someone, and I just decided that I wanted to be an in-person employee. So then I found a place to rent, started renting, and then I started going on the like search for an employee. At first, I started just asking around if anyone knew anyone that wanted a job, and that's how I got my first employee. But just the struggles that I dealt with in the beginning were really just managing everything, like, because you're busy working on these cases, but I got to find a way to bring in more cases, you know? So figuring out how to bring in more cases, what I'm going to start with first, and then you're juggling, like, I don't know how much to pay an employee, you know what I mean? So you all of this stuff, like, you're learning from brand new. And the way I got through it, man, was really just to lock myself in a room and keep thinking and working on it until I figured it out.
Yeah.
Like really just like, and then at some point you're going to have to just jump forward and try.
Right.
And then if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah. Most of the times in that case, there's no like complicated answer. Just the simple stuff is what works. Mm-hmm. I feel like, amazing. That's super interesting. I want to build off of that. So you bring in these 43 cases. What does, like, to someone who doesn't understand, and even I don't understand as much, like, what does the process look like for those 43 cases? What is like the upfront due diligence? Like, is there a period of time where you're like learning about the potential of the case and then like you're like throwing them out because you don't feel like there is like a strong case of you winning? Like, what is the criteria you're judging off of essentially to know if like this is one that like, all right, like we're gonna go for it?
Yeah, that comes with experience. Like with experience comes like you knowing whether or not a case is good, or if it falls on the line of not sure. Are we going to take the risk of putting in the time and money into seeing if this is a case?
Because you're essentially fronting everything.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, fronting everything. So first of all, an injury case, there has to be an injury. Like, you'd be surprised how many times people call me and it's like, hey, I got into an accident 4 months ago. Let's do a case. And I'm like, okay, what happened? I got rear-ended. That's good. So first you're thinking the two big things are liability and damages. Liability, can someone be at fault for what happened? And then damages. This is an actual element of negligence, like damages. There has to be an injury that resulted. So someone calls me saying they got into a car accident 4 months ago, but they haven't done any treatment whatsoever, didn't go to the hospital or anything like that. Okay, so you're telling me that you're injured, but how am I going to prove that? Right. How am I going to prove that? You got to prove it at the end of the day. So one, for sure, there has to be like an injury that you could prove through treatment. And then in terms of whether or not it's a case that's good enough to take, start with the simple ones. Someone rear-ends you, that's, it's a pretty clear case. Okay. You get a crash report. You see what the crash report shows. Oh, this person like got a ticket for speeding or not paying attention, and that's what caused the accident. That's good. Liability. It's clear that they're at fault. Sure. So you just get better with that over time.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. After you started to go through these 43 cases, like, what were the next steps in building the firm? What are some of your first hires look like? What were some of your challenges around hiring? Because I know for many business owners, including myself, like employment and talent management, things like that are like the most troubling of things to do. Because you could be, again, the best lawyer in the world, but that does not train you and prepare you to manage a team of people, right? So how did you build into that?
Trial and error. So when I hired my first employee, She like didn't know anything in terms of like tech. Basically a case manager. But one thing that I knew for sure is there's value in like not only teaching people how to do a certain thing, but to also teach them why this is being done this way. So, you know, you can't hire, I wasn't in a position to where I was able to hire someone that had like a lot of experience because those people require more money and I just didn't have it at that point. So I X that out immediately. I'm not going to be able to hire someone that has a lot of experience. I know that I'm going to have to hire someone that doesn't have much experience and train them and just hope that they're fast learners and they just go from there. Right. So luckily for me, the first employee I had was that. But I trained her and she like knew everything. Nice. You know, she learned it real quick and does a great job. So if she wasn't good, that would have set me back. But right. There's really no way to go about it. Like I remember I was learning like what questions do you even ask in an interview? Like how are you gonna find this stuff out? But you just trial and error.
100%. If you feel comfortable sharing, what has been like maybe the biggest case that you guys have closed and settled on so far?
Yeah, you know, when I settled a case for $750,000. This was, I want to say like 2 months ago. This case, I signed up a week, not even 6 days after I opened up my own law firm. 6 days after I opened up my own law firm, there was a lawyer that called me. He said, "Hey, I got a case, really bad accident. It was a motorcycle rider that got hit by a car. Really bad injuries. And the insurance company isn't willing to give me more than $50,000. Can you come check this out and see what you think?" I had my own firm at the time, so I literally just drove there. Looked at it, I was like, yeah, this case is going to require litigation because they're saying that the motorcycle rider was speeding, but the one that was driving the vehicle that hit the motorcycle, you know, it looks like they're more at fault, but it's going to require filing a lawsuit. This lawyer, despite being like over 45 years old, has never filed like a lawsuit for an injury case. I have. So I told him, yeah, I'll take it. And we filed a lawsuit and, you know, went through the whole like litigation process, motion practice, depositions, all of that. And we ended up going to a mediation and which was really cool. But in the mediation, we ended up settling for $750,000. Yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot of stories like this, so give it as many examples as you want, but like, what is the reaction of that client then when you're presenting them with a check of the multi-six-figure range?
Man, this one was special. This one was very special because the check that ended up going to this client was for over $400,000. That's after attorney's fees. That's after whatever we had to pay back in terms of medical expenses. Man, this client was awesome from the beginning. He was any jury would like him because he was just truthful. He wasn't one of those like, yeah, he had a really messed up injury, but he wasn't one of those where it's like, my life sucks, I'm gonna stay in bed for the rest of my life. He was like, yeah, I have a messed up injury. There's a lot of things that I can't do now that I used to do a lot of before, activity-wise. But he was the type that I think every true Chicagoan would love, which is like, yeah, this sucks, but I'm just gonna keep going, doing what I can do, you know, doing exactly what I can do. But when I gave this guy the check, man, it was literally like a chapter in his life, not only closed, but the next chapter just became a lot better. Wow. You know, a lot. And I mean, dude, it's a lot of money. 400, and it's cash.
I was going to say, so with a lot of these cases, what's like the average life cycle of a case, right? I know it could be years. What's the average life cycle of a case? And then like, if you settle or if you win, how immediate are these people getting paid out? Yeah,
it's a good question. The true answer is it depends. Every case is different, but you know, it's a few things. If there's a case where we're gonna know the answer to this question once we get the first offer from the insurance company. Okay, so the first thing is treatment. Some people treat for a month. Some people treat for over a year or for forever. Once treatment is done, takes me about a month to get the medical records and bills and draft a demand letter. Okay, once I send the demand letter, the insurance company, I put a deadline on them to respond within 1 month. So within 2 months, 1 to 2 months after they're done with treatment, we're at some point going to get an offer from the insurance company. And this is when we're going to know how long this case is going to take. Because if it's a good offer, then it's looking like, okay, we're going to be able to settle this case. Just negotiate a little bit, get as much as possible, and at some point settle it. If we settle it, give it about a week or two for the check to come in. While we're waiting for the check to come in, there's medical bills. I'll reduce them. So the client will be able to know exactly how much he or she is going to get. As soon as the check comes in, you deposit it, wait a day or two for it to clear through. And then once it clears, the client could come pick up his check that same day. If it's a bad offer, like $0, we don't think our guy's at fault, or just like a stupid, disrespectful offer, then that's telling me that, oh, we're going to have to fight this by filing a lawsuit. Because everything up to the point of filing a lawsuit, there's no defense attorney involved, there's no judge involved, it's just like claims. As if you got rear-ended and did a claim for your car. Same thing. So if I get a $0 offer or bad offer, then I know we're going to have to file a lawsuit. And that's when anything can happen. I've settled cases within a month after filing a lawsuit because a defense attorney got on board and was like, hey, we're ready to settle now. I guess you show to the insurance company that you'll actually file suit, so we're ready to settle now. And I've had cases where it didn't settle until we were done with like all of discovery, which is a year process. And then I've had some cases that never settled and went all the way through trial. So literally anything can happen.
Interesting. Super interesting. What was I just going to ask here? With that, obviously a lot of what you see on social media right now is very fabricated. There's a lot of attorneys, a lot of lawyers, a lot of firms that are representing themselves. And, you have to go off of, what you're seeing at face value sometimes. But I know I'm sure a lot of stories to be had around individuals that are maybe on the shadier side of the business, just as either like a story or even like advice to somebody that may be in the market to looking for something like this. Like, who are the type of individuals that like you should maybe avoid for one reason or another? And then maybe like, what's a story that you've seen play out from just being in the industry now that was extremely shocking to see from your seat?
Yeah, man, that's a good question because there's a lot of fucked up shit that you see like all the time, from lawyers and law firms and whatnot. It's crazy, but really the best advice I could give on making sure that your lawyer is not a piece of shit is to do as much research as you can. Like before, I used to say, "Oh, go on, like Google them and check their reviews." And I just found out the other day that like apparently you could buy reviews. Yeah. You could buy 5-star reviews. I was like, all right, well,
you could buy anything, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. So you want to do as much research as you can, because if you do research, you'll be able to know, like, find something like bad or even good about a lawyer or law firm. So I won't say any like names because people can change. But, I was given advice from a couple of mentors before where they said, hey, if you're successful, there's going to be a lot of times in your career as a lawyer where there's going to be a lot of money in front of you, and your portion is only some of that money as an attorney. But it's going to be very easy for you to make your portion a lot bigger in an unethical way, in an illegal way. In a way, basically taking advantage of your client. Okay. Think, for example, like a client who just came to America, doesn't know English, got into a car accident, has a case, and that you could trick this client into thinking that his check is $5,000 when it should actually be $10,000. There's a lot of those times. But karma's a real thing, and lawyers get caught doing this shit every day. And if they get caught, you could find it. So it sucks, man. Like, you hear like horrible stories all the time. It sucks because when that happens, if you choose the wrong lawyer and that does happen, you're set back for so long. Like, yeah, you could go against that lawyer, like do another case, but that's just a huge, long process.
Right. It's a time waste more than anything as well.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. On the flip side of that, right, social media does a lot of great for people in your industry as well. How has representing yourself on social benefited you and your business in the short term, right? As it's gotten off the ground. I don't think we mentioned this yet, but you have an extremely valuable handle, which is Chicago's Lawyer. I don't know if there's a story with that, but like, how did you like come up with the name? How did you get that handle at the time? At what time did that start to become like more of a character or persona off of Sharif as well? And then just like, how has like social and representing yourself online impacted you in your business?
Yeah. Man, social media has been awesome because I'm trying to have fun with it. I'm still learning like as I go, new stuff all the time. Like I wish I had like a solid answer for you, but I don't. Like, bro, I'm still learning this stuff. But social media has been awesome in a way to where like I'm able to educate people, whether it be about like injury cases or what to do and not to do in certain situations, or also just give them like insight on like being a business owner or law firm owner. And so educate people, hopefully motivate through my own like mistakes and what I've learned. But it's really been good for my business because every time I do that, I'm just reminding people that Sharif is an injury lawyer. Like just reminding people every single day. And, you know, the goal would be to put out content that people like. But whether they like it or not, if they see your video, it's Sharif Lawyer. Right. You know, so it's been helping my business a lot. The more videos that I posted, I've always noticed that like there's more cases coming in.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, it can never be a negative in that case. And then talk to us about the handle, the Chicago Lawyer. Oh, like, yeah. Is that like somebody give you a nickname? Did you like, is that something you sat down and thought about? Like, how am I going to set myself apart? What's the story there?
Yeah. You know, I wish there was a cool story, man, but there really isn't. A nickname is something I've actually always wanted my whole life. I never had one. Everyone's always just called me Sharif. But I remember I was like, okay, I want to start posting videos on social media. And it was while I was still working at the firm. And I changed, my Instagram handle was just my name. And I wanted it to be like lawyer, obviously, and then like Chicago. Like I love Chicago. I think Chicago is the best city in the world for 1,000 reasons. So I just thought, I think I tried Chicago Lawyer first. And I don't remember if it was available or not, but Chicago's Lawyer just like sounded better. Yeah. So I first just checked to see if it was available, and it was. So I did it. I thought it was valuable too. It's just cool. So I just did it and just stuck with it.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, especially in a big city like Chicago, for that to be available and the timing, it's definitely valuable for sure.
Yeah, I wanted people to see the handle and like automatically know based on the handle, like Chicago and lawyer.
Right.
You know,
they resonate that with yourself then. Yeah. How important is personal development to you, right? Like a lot of people talk about like investing in yourself, especially as a founder and entrepreneur, as being the most important thing. Yeah. I know you're someone who prioritizes health and wellness significantly. I know for myself, and I'm sure you could agree, like it's a major factor in being able to continue on and motivate yourself and just like stay in the game. But how have some of the ways you've prioritized your health habits or fitness like impacted you?
Man, it's everything. It's everything. Like, yeah, we spend so much time working and all that, but dude, like unless you're in this world alone, even if you are alone, but like most people aren't. Like they have family, right? Whether it be parents, siblings, or a spouse and kids, like you want them to be proud of every aspect of you. Sure. Business-wise, health-wise, mentally, all that. So for me, exercise has always been important. You know, before I ever started making money, the closest thing I ever felt to being rich was when I was consistent with exercising. The days that I work out, Joe Rogan said it best. The days that I work out are the days where I have respect for myself. That way I know that at least that day I wasn't a lazy piece of shit and I got something done that was hard and millions of other people didn't get done today if you just worked out. So, and you know, once you reach a level to where you start seeing like a difference in your body, that's just like having $1 million, something that most other people don't have. So that was like the closest feeling to being rich that I have. It also builds confidence and all of that. So man, it's everything, and it's like a constant thing. You're never satisfied. You're always trying to think. I'm always at least trying to think, what is one way that I could better myself physically, mentally, spiritually as well. which is hard. And it's a constant thing. Like, sometimes you fall off. But that's like the game of life, man. You got to just like keep going and learn from it.
100%. I totally agree.
It's everything. Like, I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
Someone comes up to you and their net worth is like $40 million. Obviously amazing, but they're sitting in front of you and like, you could still, despite this person having a huge net worth, still be like, man, I don't want to be like this person for many reasons, whether it be because their health is off or they're just a piece of shit with their family or anything like that, or just an asshole to you. So there's a lot more to it than just money. Like, there's a million things.
Yeah. I see myself more and more like actually run through that scenario in my head of people that I encounter and meet, and like, I don't think the monetary aspect of it is everything, especially if you're someone who's like deeply rooted in proper values and morals. But yeah, you hit it on the head there. That segues into my next point too. Now it's like, obviously you have personal goals for yourself, and that definitely translates into your business. What are maybe some of the current goals that you feel like you've achieved over maybe 2025 or even the first couple of years of Maadi Law being around, and what do those next level goals look like for the business? Yeah.
And do you ever like write down your goals?
I have.
You see like a bunch of stuff all the time, like write down your goals. It makes a huge difference, bro. It does. Like, if you write down your goals, it's insane. Like, manifesting something really, like, I don't know what way to explain it, but it really like makes a huge difference.
Dissect for people, because I think the word manifest gets thrown around a lot, and people could take it in their own way. And I think it has a lot of different meanings. I think people can manifest in different ways. Yeah. People could write down goals in different ways. How often should someone be writing down their goals? And how do you manifest, or like, how do you feel like that works for you?
Yeah. How often you should write down your goals, man. I guess it just depends on like what goals you have. Like, for me, I only wrote down my goals New Year's of last year, but I think maybe this year I might try to do like quarterly goals. Okay.
Nice.
But the whole like manifestation thing is like, I forgot what the method is called, but you ever, like, if me and you start talking about red cars or a specific type of car, let's say like a Jeep Wagoneer, random as hell. If we just like start talking about it, you'll start to see it more. Right? That's like, it's like a fact of psychology. Manifestation almost works the same way. When you have goals and you write them down, it's the same exact thing. You start to like see it more, and like the progress towards those goals that you're achieving just by writing it down. And if, I mean, shit, like your question about how often should you write down your goals, it's a good question. I never thought about it, but I should actually be writing down my goals even more. My goal for 2025, and I have it written down, is to be able to honestly say that my law firm is a 7-figure law firm, to have over 200 5-star reviews, legit reviews. Some people are always not buying reviews. Have a staff of 4+ people, be in a new office that's bigger, that has room for growth. And I think like those are the 4 big ones. And then some personal stuff too, like for the family. And I've accomplished all of those goals, except for the reviews. I'm at 135 right now. But I don't know how to explain it, man. But if I did not write it down, it would not be. It's different.
Doesn't feel as tangible. I feel like.
Yeah. So for new goals heading into 2026, just bigger and better, man. Like, when you're thinking goals, you want to like aim for the sky, almost something that's like unrealistic. Like, when I wrote 200 reviews, that's not necessarily realistic, man. Like, that's almost like a review every 2-3 days. And that's just, I didn't even have that many cases at the time. But to aim big, so you could constantly have something to work towards. Just like aim big, write it down, dude. Like, write it down.
Amazing.
And if you're really good at it, start thinking about strategy of how you're going to obtain that goal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know you just talked a little bit about how you're in the process of purchasing an office, which is a big step, a big deal. For individuals that like, because right now there's so much between being like a solopreneur and remote work and not needing an office versus renting an office in the city, buying an office somewhere. I mean, what are some indicators for yourself, right? I won't ask broadly, but like, what were some indicators for yourself that led you toward the idea and the path of like, it makes sense for me to buy? I'm not overly jumping. It's not something that is like out of the realm right now, but it makes sense for me and it's going to benefit my business in the long term.
Yeah. So first I was like, okay, how much money am I putting towards like rent right now? And what am I getting for that money being put towards rent? So that was, the number. And I was like, okay, well, I need a bigger space now because I want to hire more people. Right now it's at full capacity with like 3 in-person employees. So I was like, I need to move. And just thinking in the future, I want to hire more staff, but also another attorney. So I need the space. So I'm either going to rent or buy. You hear people talking about buying all the time, paying yourself instead of like giving money to someone else. And there's pros and cons with everything. But I seen that number of how much I was paying for rent. So then I started like looking for everything. I put on a couple of realtors, told them to search for these specific things, rent or purchase. And it was about like maybe 8 months that I was searching until I found an office condominium that was the perfect size, good location, and the price wise, I was just like, I'm only paying a little bit more than how much I'm paying for rent to own something. Right. And that's when you also start thinking about like real estate portfolio and other benefits that you could have with just like owning. So that's how I came to that decision.
Amazing. No, it totally makes sense. Awesome. Well, I want to wrap in one specific area. I think like we've alluded to a little bit, it's very easy for people to get caught in the trap of either imposter syndrome, comparing themselves to people online through social. People are conflicted with the path and the route that they want to go each and every day when they're graduating school, post-grad. There's people in their mid-20s and even 30s that are not content or, happy within what they do. I'd say like on the first end, like what would you say to someone that's still figuring that out, that doesn't know truly where their passions lie or, the path that they want to pursue for their career? What advice would you give to someone trying to figure that out and dissect that in today's world?
Yeah, it's hard. If you literally have no idea what you want to do, like it's hard. So if you have no idea what you want to do, you for sure have at least thoughts of what you might want to do, or at least a vision of how you want to look, what stuff you want to do. So if you first of all, you at least have to have a thought. You're not just going to like not know anything and then be something. You have to at least start with a thought. The second you start with a thought, whether it's the right like choice of, oh, I actually want to do this or not, the truth is you're not going to know until you're in it. So start thinking about the life that you want to live and what you want to do. This is for work. This is for how you want to look physically. This is for whether you envision yourself having a family and how you want that to look. So start having those thoughts, start writing it down. And then once you start writing it down and having, you write it down and then just work every day towards that goal. Sounds like generic, but think about it. Yeah. You want to have a good body. Okay. And it's very hard. There's a difference between simple and like easy. Something could be simple, but still hard and not easy, right? So like working out, for example, simple, eat healthy, go to the gym every day. Sure. It's very hard to do. But if that's something that you want to obtain, then take the first step, sign up at a gym. And then just start going every day. And it's the same exact thing with like what you want to do with your life, business-wise or work-wise. Start working towards it every day. So you have a vision in your head that you want to be an entrepreneur. Well, you need money in order to do that. So there's many jobs out there. Go find a job to at least start saving money to go do like baby steps, dude. Baby steps. And just like, because working towards that goal builds a momentum. And once that momentum's built, it becomes much easier. Every single thing. Yeah. Mentally, spiritually, everything. So it's all about the momentum. And then you just keep going, man. Because even if you're on, like the momentum's good and everything's fine, like there's going to be days where you're like, fuck this. And then you're going to question yourself, like, why did I do this? I remember the days when I was working at the firm for the first 3 years, everything was going according to plan. I was getting the experience that I wanted, super fast. I was bringing in like the cases, but the finances just weren't there with the way that the finance structure for me, at least at that firm, was built. So there were days where I was just like, bro, what the fuck? Like, what the hell? Like, did I really sign up for this shit?
Right.
You know, people think, oh, you're a lawyer. This guy's automatically making a lot of money and automatically doing all that. Not the case at all. Not for all lawyers, but there are some,
Sure,
depending on the field that you want to go into. But there were a lot of days where, despite me being on plan, exactly what I was planning on doing, and everything was going good in terms of the plan, where I was still just like, the fuck am I doing, man? Like, this is hard.
Yeah, that satisfaction wasn't there. I think that's really, really good point, really good advice. In wrapping up here, I always ask this as a final closing question, but knowing what you know now, if you were able to go back in time and say one thing to the 18-year-old version of Sharif, what would that be?
What would I tell my 18-year-old self? I would just make myself aware that, like, hey man, you could plan and everything will be going according to plan. And you could do everything strategically and everything's going right, but you're still going to struggle. Knowing that, like, genuinely knowing that, like, hey man, even if everything's going right, you're still going to like struggle, whether it be mentally, physically, whatever it is. If I had just known that, it would have saved a lot of dead days.
Sure.
Because those days where I was like that, those are just lost days. Like, no work was being done on those days, and it would happen every now and then. And sometimes it would take a day or two to pick myself back up. But if I had just known that, then it would have been, I would have had much more productive days. Like, those days wouldn't have been as lost, or at least cut it in half.
That even if it doesn't feel like it, you're still following your path. You're still going according to the plan. Not every day is going to feel like an A+.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, Chicago's lawyer, Sharif Maadi, thank you so much for being on Link Live. This is extremely insightful. Tell the viewers, tell everybody, look into one of the cameras here, where they could follow you, where they could find you, where they could get into contact with you.
Yeah. Chicago's lawyer on Instagram and TikTok. That's pretty much it, man. Follow me on social media, and if you can, give some insight. That's it.
Awesome. Beautiful. That's a wrap.
All right.